Morning and thanks for coming out today. My name's John Tillman. I'm the CEO of the Illinois Policy Institute, and we're very excited to be with you today to talk about Budget Solutions 2018. I would like to thank Representatives Jeannie Ives and Alan Skillicorn for being here with us as well today. They'll be up here in a moment to speak to you as well. As you know, Illinois has not had a state budget in over 18 months, has not had a balanced budget in over 15 years, and it is true that our state is tottering on the brink of insolvency. Some would say it already is insolvent. So we're here today to present our reform plan, as I noted, Budget Solutions 2018. The Illinois Policy Institute has crafted a budget plan that will actually fix our state. Our plan is balanced and does not raise taxes. It offers property tax relief to Illinois taxpayers, and most importantly, it reforms spending. And it reforms pensions in a way that complies with the Illinois Constitution as it currently is written. Our plan, unlike every other plan being discussed in the state, ensures that taxpayers are respected and treated fairly instead of being treated like an ATM machine to pay for the past mistakes of elected officials. In a little bit, I'm going to offer an overview of our plan and why it works. But before I do that, let's all just maybe reminisce for a brief moment. Reminiscing can be kind of fun. Let's go back to 2011, a time when Illinois was in turmoil. Then it had a growing backlog of bills. It had a structural deficit in 2011. Illinois, you might remember, had a pension problem, a very weak economy. The unemployment rate was over 9%. Things were pretty bad. So what did the General Assembly do in all of its wisdom? In January of 2011, the lawmakers raised the personal income tax and the corporate income tax, a $7 billion tax increase. We were told this tax increase would be temporary. Former Governor Pat Quinn said the tax increase would, quote, make sure our state has a strong economy, close quote. Senate President Cullerton, who still serves today, said the tax increase would allow Illinois to, quote, pay off its debt, and promised that it would lead to spending reform. In fact, he said, and I quote, it's going to work. So what has happened? From the time that tax increase was enacted in 2011 until the partial expiration of it at the end of 2014, Illinois government collected $31 billion additional dollars from the people of Illinois. $31 billion additional dollars. Every single household in Illinois did its part to try to solve the problem. It sent thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to state government as part of their effort to solve the problem and turn the state around. Did the tax increase do any of the things that the politicians promised? Did it erase the backlog of bills? Did it repair the Illinois economy? Did it repair the structural deficit? As you well know, because we're standing here today, it did none of those things. In fact, we would make the case it made things worse. Illinois was thrust into an even deeper economic hole. Hundreds of thousands of people have moved out of Illinois, about 114,000 last year alone, and businesses have left and continue to leave. The state's backlog of bills has lingered, and Illinois' pension debt grew by more than $20 billion during the tax hike years alone. In 2011, lawmakers raised taxes, but they did not address spending reforms. They forced taxpayers to send more money to Springfield, but they did not change their own ways, their own behavior. And that's why we are here today facing the same problems we did 6 years ago. So why would Illinois ever think about raising taxes again at a time when after it's been a failed policy for so long? Every week, another lawmaker, another pundit, another special interest group says to the General Assembly, raise taxes. We keep hearing that there's no way to fix Illinois without taking billions of dollars away from taxpayers all over again. And I'm here to tell you they're wrong. Raising taxes will not fix Illinois. We must reform the way Illinois does business. We must reform the way it actually spends the taxpayers' money. We must slow the growth of spending to a rate below the growth in revenues. It is that simple. Spending must rise more slowly than revenues. That is the only solution. So we're here today to offer up a new path forward, one that will actually fix Illinois and get us out of these problems once and for all. And as I said earlier, I'm so happy to have Representative Ives and Skillicorn with us, who have been courageous leaders for fiscal reform in Springfield. And as I said, our solution is called Budget Solutions 2018. Our plan offers a full-year budget without gimmicks. Our budget plan is balanced. We do not spend more money than Illinois will take in under the current tax rates. That's right. I know it's a little crazy given what's going on in Springfield, but we don't propose any income tax increases at all. Our plan does close the $7.1 billion budget deficit in a responsible fashion. We've been touring the state, talking to taxpayers, local municipal officials, and others about our plan, and perhaps the thing they're most excited about is the property tax plan, the property tax relief that we suggest. Illinois has the highest property taxes in the nation. For a lot of homeowners, their property tax bill is like a second mortgage. In suburban Lake County, your typical household's property tax burden has risen by 44% since 1999. In McHenry County, that's 45% rising since 2000. And even though the state government doesn't levy a property tax directly, it plays a major role in driving up the costs of local government. So our plan fixes that. We propose a 5-year freeze on property tax levies to give taxpayers immediate relief. After the initial 5-year period, we propose tying any annual property tax increases to the ability of Illinois citizens to pay. That means basing any growth on the annual change in Illinois' median household income with a maximum growth of 2%. Our plan requires a referendum approved by 2/3 of voters whenever local governments want to raise other taxes and fees so they can't bypass that limit. Illinois government encourages local governments to spend more than they should by sending billions of dollars to thousands of local governments a year. All this does is allow local governments to spend on things that their constituencies would never approve of and pass those bills on to taxpayers all across the state outside of their community. We want to end that charade. We want to create local accountability. If a local school district wants to engage in pension spiking at the end of a teacher's career, they can do that. If they want to give administrators excessive compensation packages, they can do that, but they won't be able to spend the bill to other taxpayers anymore. They'll have to convince their local taxpayers why that spending is that kind of money is a good thing. We also recognize that Illinois makes it tough for local governments to do the right thing. It's very hard to reform local government because of state mandates and other regulatory issues. It's hard to consolidate governments agency to agency, and too often the state imposes excessive costs, especially unnecessary mandates on local government. We roll these back. We eliminate them. Local control will finally mean local control. Now, another facet of our plan that you're all quite familiar with as a problem in Illinois is pensions, and we have an excellent pension proposal that actually solves that problem as well. It does seem a little bit like, since the 2015 Supreme Court decision, that most of the people serving in the General Assembly and around the state have been paralyzed in terms of how to address the pension problem. It has been getting worse ever since the pension crisis started, but especially since 2015. But let's go back to 2011. Illinois had an unfunded pension liability of $83 billion. Today, that number stands at $130 billion. Think about that. Almost every single penny of the $31 billion in tax hikes that were taken in from 2011 through the end of 2014 went to pay for pensions. And despite that, we still have an increase of $47 billion from 83 to $130 billion. That is amazing. Illinois' pension system is broken. It will never work. It's unfair to ask taxpayers to keep bailing out a broken system, and it's also unfair, very unfair, to government workers to make promises that will never be able to be kept. We cannot keep making those promises. Our plan ends that and ends this crisis. Not as quickly as we'd like, because we do have to have a constitutional solution, but absent changes to the Constitution, we've devised a plan that does actually secure Illinois' pension system. Our pension proposal does 3 critical things. Number 1, it opens up the state's existing self-managed plan to all government workers. Number 2, it moves all government workers to self-managed plans and achieves 90% funding by 2047. And number 3, it frees up state money that currently goes to pensions for other priorities such as social services and education. A little more detail, some of you may be familiar with this. 20,000 employees of the state government have decided not to join the current system that is broken, and instead they participate in this self-managed plan. That plan is only open to higher education employees. What we do is open it up to all state government and local employees. Under the Institute's plan, at least half of all workers will be on a defined contribution plan by 2030, and almost all workers will have control of their destiny, be on a self-managed plan by 2047. This proposal follows the lead of more than a dozen states that have enacted some sort of 401k style reform over the last 20 years. The final reform idea I'll mention just here in my opening remarks is relating to the state's workforce. The governor has agreed to collective bargaining contracts with 20 unions, as you know. But there's one holdout. Everybody knows who that holdout is, right? AFSCME, and it is a biggie. As we speak, AFSCME is the state's largest union and is conducting a strike authorization vote. The union wants more money. The union wants higher raises. They want even better health care with even better subsidies. The union leadership, frankly, needs a reality check. Illinois is broke, and AFSCME workers already get an unbelievably extraordinary deal. AFSCME demands ignores 4 significant facts about Illinois state worker compensation. First, Illinois state workers are the highest paid state workers in the country. AFSCME workers receive Cadillac health care benefits, and they only pay 23% of the premium. Most state workers receive free retiree health care after they retire, health insurance, I should say. And career state retirees, on average, receive about $1.6 million in pension benefits on top of Social Security. AFSCME workers represent just 1% of our state's population, but they're asking the other 99% who make less, who have lesser benefits, to give them more. That's just not fair, and there's no way that should happen. Our proposal saves $1.1 billion in a single year by beginning to achieve parity, fairness, between those who work for government and those who pay for government. Illinois could save $63 million, for example, by paying overtime after 40 hours instead of 37.5 hours. We could save another $48 million by adjusting how holiday pay is computed. Total payroll for state employees will cost about $4.5 billion in 2018. Our plan calls for reforming the cost of government by reducing payroll costs by about $500 million. That's a little over 10%. That seems to me very reasonable. That's what people do in the private sector every day. And we ask rank and file workers, in fact, we implore them not to strike, and to accept the governor's last best offer that's on the table instead. It's in line with the 20 other government unions in Illinois and is closer to being in line with what taxpayers can afford. Now, some of you may be thinking, how can the legislature pass such a budget, such a bold, reform, balanced budget, or even an irresponsible tax increase? How can they do these reforms? I think they have no choice to do this. They have to do this instead of irresponsible tax increases. Illinois is in extreme crisis. Our state is at risk of financial and an economic death spiral. Some say it's already begun. We have been standing up here doing these proposals for years, warning you of these problems for years, and we are running out of time to fix them. To tell you about the reality of these discussions in the General Assembly, first up will be Representative Jeannie Ives, followed by Representative Alan Skillicorn. Jeannie?
Thank you. Well, John, I'm not really going to talk about the reality in the General Assembly. I'm going to talk about the reality with my taxpayers that I represent in my area of Wheaton. And I will tell you, nearly every conversation at the door is, as soon as my kid's out of high school, I'm out of here. As soon as my wife retires from her job, I'm leaving the state of Illinois. I cannot afford these property taxes, and I'm not getting the benefits that I deserve out of those services. So my district is very much aware of where the state is headed. Unfortunately, the General Assembly is not. And I think what's important to realize here is that Illinois is an outlier. Our financial condition is what's extreme, not these policies we're trying to put in place. And we need to correct that. We need to stand with the common Illinoisans who do not receive nearly the credit that they should in any of the discussions down there when it comes to the budget. It is all about the lobbyists, the special interests, the public sector unions, and longtime political people who have made their mark down in Springfield and not made their mark in the private sector or with their taxpayers. This is enough. Now, what's also interesting about this proposal is that none of these ideas are really new. If you think that there's a lot of new ideas in this plan, you're wrong. Many of these proposals have already been written up in bill format years ago. In fact, the pension proposal that moves everybody to a Tier 3 SMP self-managed plan, I wrote that bill 2 years ago. Of course, it never got out of rules. The Medicaid reform has been talked about. The other pension ideas have been talked about. So none of this is really that new. And so for anybody to come I want people to really understand that we're an outlier in terms of finances. We need to do something that's real, and taxpayers expect that response. So thank you to the Illinois Policy Institute for packaging this comprehensive yet modest reform package. And I say modest because they did not actually go as far as they could have. They didn't count on new revenue from gambling that is unknown. They didn't make rosy assumptions that can't be verified. Everything here has been very well thought out. And so I encourage you in the media to write about this and to make sure that people understand the plan in its entirety. And also here with me is Representative Alan Skillicorn.
Hi there, my name is Representative Alan Skillicorn, and I'm excited to be here because Illinois needs bold leadership and transformative policies. Now, I was reminded that brevity is a very important subject, so I just want to give you a rundown of what's my priorities in the general legislature and how I'm going to serve my constituents. And first is that working class families, small businesses, and retirees are being punished every single day from our out-of-control property taxes. In the Collier counties, we have some of the highest property taxes in the nation, 2 to 3 times higher than the national average. These people are not receiving the services they pay for. They're getting a very bum deal. They're not getting a very good return on their investment. Second is that the general legislature needs to make it easier for local municipalities to provide services that people want, but at a lower cost. Now, that could be through consolidation, that could be through unfunded mandate reform, that could be through other issues and other policies that it can make it easier to provide the services that people really want, but at a lower cost. And third, we need to retire and rein in our pension deficit. Right now, we have an out-of-control pension bubble. And this is a situation that is going to lead to future property tax increases, future income tax increases, and that's something we need to rein in. So I wholeheartedly support the pension reform policies that are in this program, and I think it's utmost that we get to it. So again, Illinois needs bold leadership and transformative policies. Thanks.